Hello YouTube, I am finally done with my exams and I'm still pretty tired. However, as I promised a few days ago, I started immediately working on a new video, albeit maybe a bit short one. So, today we're talking about a subject we learn most about in the Elder Scrolls Online, the power structure between the leaders in Valenwood, the Sylvan R, Green Lady, the Wilder King and finally the Camoran King. This subject was requested over 1.5 years ago by the YouTube user TimDouglas55. Yeah, it's been 1.5 years, but I'm still doing this. With that said, let's kick off with the video immediately. So, the government of Valenwood is pretty much a loose kingdom with the Camoran King at its head. Under him are the tribes of Valenwood, who are all generally following his lead with a few exceptions. Now, it's disputed how much power the Camoran Kings actually have outside of the cities of Valenwood, as there's a lot of tribes within Valenwood and really no structure at all to the land that would bind them to a kingdom. And those tribes generally don't bow to the authority of the Camoran Kings. These tribes usually tend to be ruling themselves, but they do listen to the authority of the so-called living gods of Valenwood, the Sylvan R, the Green Lady and the Wilder King. So, if you've never played Elder Scrolls Online, you would probably not know either the Sylvan R, the Green Lady or the Wilder King are, unless you dug deep into Valenwood lore or search it on the internet. So, to put it simple, these three people, the Sylvan R, Green Lady and the Wilder King, are all essentially living gods of Valenwood. I know I probably already triggered some very annoyed lore masters by calling them living gods, because I know it's more complex than that, but it's way the easiest way to explain this for this video. I'm sorry if I triggered you. They are the living gods, as we will call them, and they are mentored by mortals, so essentially a mortal became that god. It's a bit more complex than that, but it's all you need to know for the video. So, a bit of background on these individuals before we can actually talk about their place in Bosmer culture and the Bosmer government. The Sylvan R is the embodiment of all Bosmer people. Literally. According to the book A Dance in Fire, the appearance, health, feelings, gender and the mood of the Sylvan R changes with the Bosmer people itself. It's essentially one individual consisting out of the general status of all the Bosmer people. They are sad, he is sad. They are hungry, he feels that hunger. They feel pain, he feels that pain. This makes him one of the most important spiritual leaders to the Bosmer people, as he always knows their needs, as their needs are his needs. His needs cannot be fulfilled if he does not fulfill the needs of the Bosmer people. Think about it, it's the perfect king. If the people are starving, he starves as well, and even if he decides to be very selfish and just eat something, he will keep starving because the people are starving, so the only way to make him stop starving is by feeding the people. It's the closest to an uncorrupt official you can get, since he cannot be corrupt, since if he's corrupt he'll fuck himself up as well. This special connection has often led in history to the Sylvan R not only be a spiritual leader but also a political leader in Valenwood. Throughout history, the Sylvan R often acted as the grand leader of Valenwood, or the Bosmer people at least, or a foreign diplomat for the Kingdom of Valenwood. Tasks that his gift make him very suited for, because representing his own interests abroad or at home makes it so that he always also represents the Bosmer's interests, since their interests are his interests. The Sylvan R also has a special guard unit to him, consisting of the best and the brightest warriors and archers in all of Valenwood. Primarily archers. Now, to every Sylvan R there is his wife, the Green Lady. While the Sylvan R represents partly the civility and control in the Bosmer, his wife the Green Lady is the complete opposite and represents the strength and wild nature of the Bosmer. This wild nature is repressed by the deep connection that she has with the Sylvan R, turning her into the civilized wife of the Sylvan R. However, when the Sylvan R dies or gets killed, these powers and wild natures are revealed, leading into a rage-filled being. We actually experience this in Elder Scrolls Online when the Sylvan R is assassinated. And we have to go do a quest where we help a new Sylvan R and a new Green Lady get to be. Together, the Sylvan R and the Green Lady have often been the ruling couple of Valenwood, having much influence over the population. The Sylvan R and the Green Lady are chosen by the Bosmer in a ritual that's only known to their race, and it's a closely guarded mysterious secret. This ritual is called the Handfast. This ritual involves choosing the new Sylvan R and Green Lady and then binding them to each other in a sacred marriage ritual. Often, this couple together have had almost deity-like statuses in Valenwood. Their deep connection to Y'ffre has given them the status of almost living gods. But they're not the only living gods in Valenwood, there's also the Wielder King. The Wielder King is crudely spoken a manifestation of the land of Valenwood itself. He has the power over nature and is more or less one with the land. Technically, he embodies all or most of Valenwood, but his influence is actually the strongest around the place where, well, the living god himself resides, and he actually appears in public, to some select individuals. It's in the region of Greenshade, to the southwest of Valenwood. With some native tribes there, his influence is so great that they will only listen to his word, and his word alone. Not to the king, not to the Sylvan R, only to the Wielder King. The Wielder King is, as I said before, a living god mantled by a mortal. When a Wielder King dies, he has to be replaced by a mortal who will then become the Wielder King. So when he dies, another is destined to become the Wielder King. In Elder Scrolls Online we can actually witness the death of a Wielder King and then see him be replaced by a woman, turning her into the Wielder Queen. We can see that the mantling makes it so that the mortals loses all of his or her memories of the past life that he or she lived, and will live on as Wielder King or Queen with only the memories of him or her as the living god of nature remaining, erasing the former life he or she has had. Through the ages, the Wielder King has also been part in Valenwood's politics, since he has the power over nature and is responsible for keeping the balance in nature in Valenwood. He is a force to be reckoned with. To some, he is the absolute authority, and those people actually refuse to bow to any other authority than his. However, he usually keeps himself out of politics and focuses on the nature and focuses on the force he has to care for. However, when he dabbles in politics, it's usually to secure or approve an alliance for the tribes that follow his authority alone, when they cannot stand alone against a threat. Now, this all makes ruling Valenwood a pretty complex situation, but there's yet another authority in Valenwood, as we said in the beginning of this video. Or at least they used to be. The Comoran Kings. The Comoran Kings were the first ruling royals in all of Tamriel, ruling over Valenwood. The start of their reign officially began in the First Era, and actually it began in the year 0 of the First Era, since their reign kickstarted the First Era, the start of their reign. So that gives a bit of an idea how long they've been in power, as their reign only ended in the Third Era. That is a reign over 3000 years, so it's a pretty substantial dynasty. During this time, the Comoran Kings have often been regarded as the highest political authority in Valenwood. But does that make them the absolute rulers of Valenwood? Well, I would disagree, because during this time, Valenwood was, well, ruled by the Comoran Kings, with them essentially being the highest authority in the land. However, as I said before, they will have to work with the living gods to make sure that they can actually enforce their rule upon the Bosmer. The Green Lady and the Sylvan R have often held high positions in government of the Comorans. During the Elder Scrolls Online, for example, they serve as the foreign ambassadors, essentially functioning as the secretaries of state, being involved in diplomacy, but also having an advisory status to the Comoran Kings. For the Comoran King, working with the Sylvan R makes him trade in a bit of his own power to be able to work with the Sylvan R. Because to be able to work with the Sylvan R, he needs to appease the needs of the Sylvan R. But in the end, this is mostly a positive thing, of course, since, well, the only way to appease the Sylvan R is by appeasing the Bosmer people, almost forcing a Comoran king to be a good king, at least for the Bosmer. Now, I can imagine not all Comoran kings having worked with the Sylvan R in the past, because we know that there have been good and bad Comoran rulers. A possible example of a bad ruler that probably did not work with the Sylvan R could be the Comoran usurper. But we don't have many records on that, and it's just my own speculation. However, if you wish to know more about the Comoran usurper, I did a video on him. Shameless plug ended. Now, the Comoran king also needs to work with the Wielder King and make sure that the Wielder King is kept happy, as many of the tribes in the heartland of Valenwood, as I said before, only follow the Wielder King and only follow the Wielder King's word. They will only bow to the will of the Comorans if the Wielder King commands them to follow the Comorans or ally themselves with the Comorans. This leads to a situation where it isn't all really clear who has the most power in Valenwood, as the Comoran kings are powerful as it's stated in the lore, but to make sure that they actually have a tight grip on ruling the country, they will need to work with the living deities to make sure their rule is prosperous and the kingdom does not fall apart. You can see it a bit as the medieval relation between the kings and the Pope. I mean, the kings had ruled their own land, but in the end they all bowed to the Pope. If you see what I mean. In this context, be it the living gods being the Pope and the kings being the Comoran kings, of course. However, I don't know exactly how the power structure is, because we don't know the exact power structure. We don't know who has the most power, or if the Comoran kings could oppose the Sylvan R or the Wilder King effectively without pissing off the people. Because for that, we simply don't have enough lore on it. What we do know, however, is that after the end of the Comoran dynasty, the Sylvan R took official political leadership of Valenwood, as we can read in the books appearing in Oblivion and Morrowind, essentially ending the power complex for most of it. And that's basically all we know about it. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I am sorry for my absence, that has almost been more than 1.5 weeks. I am really sorry, but I'm back, and I plan to do a little bit more in the coming days, but I'm not sure if I can realize that. If you liked the video, like, subscribe. If you want to make sure you see my videos when they come out, hit the bell button, because YouTube no longer pushes videos to subscribers, so I don't know what subscribing is useful for anymore. If you want personal contact with me, there's my Discord and Instagram in the description. Also in the description is my Patreon. If you support me on Patreon, you get some cool Patreon assets, including your name at the end of every video and the ability to be with my live lore series, the recordings of it at least, and ask live questions while I do the live lore lectures. Now, soon I will be starting with my lecture series on big Elder Scrolls history, doing a very broad overview of creation until the 4th era. It's basically all of Elder Scrolls history in a very short overview, done in multiple lectures of about half an hour. If you want to attend them live, you will have to support me on Patreon. Your pledge doesn't really matter, if it's $1 or $5, I don't care. You can attend them either way. And if you don't want to support me but still want to follow the big history lectures, they will appear on YouTube with Patreon questions included. But if you want to attend them live, you have to support me. With that plug ended, I will see you all in the next video, probably in a few days. We'll see you later.